What's up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Details Matter. I have another special guest with me today who just won the Miss Canada 2023 bikini title. So this is the most prestige title in the country to win. Obviously, that means you're number one bikini girl in the country. So that's also a huge achievement, and also an IFBB Pro. So welcome, Lindsay, to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Perfect. So why don't you tell me a bit about yourself, your age, your experience and your history with fitness.
Yeah, so we started coaching, I guess, in like 2019. So that was when I first prepped for my first show. I guess maybe a little bit before that, because my first show was 2019. So a little bit of a backstory. I worked at a hospital for all of COVID, and I kind of transitioned to the lifestyle coaching under Lady the F Up.
Mm-hmm.
So this year, actually, in May was when I quit my job to fully pursue coaching, which has been a great transition. It definitely made prep a lot easier. Yeah.
So you did your first show in 2019.
Yeah.
How did you do at that show? I don't remember.
So I did the novice competition. So like the very, first time competitor, first time ever competing or stepping foot on stage. So I won that class, and then I won my class, but I didn't win the overall.
Oh, they had novice at that time?
Yeah, true novice, okay. I think.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, there's something called novice, true novice. True novice is you've never competed before. Novice is you've competed and you didn't get top 5, so you probably did true novice. But
yeah.
I think at the time it was only one of them. They only had a novice.
I think I did both.
Oh, so you did 3 categories?
Yeah.
And you placed how?
First in all 3. And then the overall is, I think, can't remember what
you didn't win the overall?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay, so the way it works is you place in your category, and then when you place in your height category or your weight category, depending on which class you're in, depending on which category you compete in, then you go to the overall. So all the height class winners go against each other, and then you have to beat all the height class winners to win the overall, which is one of these trophies here. So you didn't win that.
No.
Right, at that time in 2019. No. And then you did another show after that when? 2020?
Yeah, because I think I've done 6 or 7.
What show did you do in 2020?
I did Fuad.
Oh, okay. How'd you place?
That I got 2nd in my class.
Okay, you got 2nd.
And then that girl that won that one became pro after.
So 2020, and then you did another show in 2021, or no?
Yes.
Okay,
because
so
we
pretty much did a show every year.
Every year,
Once a year, you did a show.
The last year, though, I did, I think, 2 or 3.
Yeah. So you did pretty good in every show you did, I think, within reason. Like you're always top 3.
Yeah. Yeah. Always top 3.
Every show, top 3. But you never really placed, obviously, winning. First of all, you've never won an overall.
No.
Which even at a regional show. So first you do a regional show, and then which qualifies you if you get top 3 to the national level, where you have to win your class and then win the overall to turn pro. So you never even won a regional show overall. No. And to be fair, also, like, your classes aren't that hard usually because you're the tallest. Like you're the tallest of all the height classes.
Put on muscle and kind of build your physique when you're taller.
Fill out your frame, right? So, you were never really posed with like the hardest classes. So, and the fact that you didn't win the overall, even when you did win, means like you weren't amazing yet.
Yeah.
Right. So
exactly.
Last year you ended up placing 3rd at the pro qualifier, which is a national level, and as I said, you have to win your class, and then you have to win the overall, and that's how you turn pro. You placed 3rd, and you didn't look that good.
No, that was probably my worst.
Okay.
My worst show.
So I want to know, like, because this year was different. You ended up winning a week before you turned pro. You won the overall, and you looked phenomenal. And then you competed a week later. You won your class. You won the overall again. So you did the same thing twice, but obviously this time it was at a national level. So you have all these winners coming together, and you beat them all, and then you ended up turning pro and getting that title of Miss Canada. So what do you think shifted? You mentioned like you switched jobs, you're working in the hospital, and I know there's a lot of shift workers. So like what were you doing before? Like you were working, I know it was always a struggle to get you in shape, to be honest, like peak shape because of that.
Because I wouldn't sleep. Like I would do shift work. I would work maybe like 2-3 nights in a row and then just sleep for maybe like 4 hours and then do it again. I just found that it was really hard to balance like doing all the cardio, prioritizing sleep, nutrition, like everything like that was just almost too much. And I'm a terrible sleeper. So.
And it was also hard for me to balance your body as a coach, like to figure out
there's too many factors.
How to keep it stable.
Yeah.
Right. And the biggest thing when you're coaching people, for me at least, is to create stability within someone's body. Because the only way to know that you should be making changes is to have a degree of like a pattern or consistency. So when I can create a level of consistency, I know that these micro changes that we make, whether it's increasing 5 grams of carbs or decreasing 5 grams of carbs or increasing or decreasing the cardio, has any sort of effect. But if your body's all over the place, especially because it's all circumambulated around your sleep, then it's very difficult to manage your body.
Yeah.
And sleep is I would say the catalyst for everything fat loss related, right? So like it's when your hormones are being secreted most. It's when it's when your body's at rest, and when you're at rest is when you're burning the most amount of calories.
And I also find, because like you eat at different times in the day too, so like all of that is inconsistent, and then trying to figure out a good schedule. Like you will be working like 3 nights and then have a day off and then switch back over to days. So it's kind of like you're constantly balancing a schedule.
Yeah, like so 2 days turn into 1 from your eating schedule.
Exactly.
And honestly, as a coach, it is difficult. And I'm not saying I haven't done it. I've worked with many people that do, but it's not the most ideal circumstance when you're going against people that have equally as good genetics, equally as good work ethic, but a better sleep schedule. And sleep is everything. That's when you build muscle. That's when your body's repairing and all that. So this year you made a lot of changes, right? So we weren't too close to the show when you decided this, but we hired you under our lifestyle brand, Lady the F Up. So you were working, you weren't doing good. You were doing okay, but you weren't doing exceptionally good.
Yeah, it was kind of a lot to handle with like having a job at the hospital and then also coaching, because it's like
you were
constantly.
You were trying to coach people, so start something new, so learn all these new skills.
Yeah.
You were trying to diet for a show, and you were trying to manage your full-time job. Then one day you didn't show up to a meeting.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Right, so you didn't show up to a meeting, and
I got a message from Deb.
Yeah, and then we talked to you, and we just kind of sort of simply said, like, you can't do both.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember what I said to you.
Something about, like, if you want to do this long term, you can't do both, so you have to choose.
Yeah, you have to give up that job, and I know it's difficult because obviously starting something new, and when you have responsibility and all these things, it is a difficult thing. So you have to give that up, and you pursue this fully, which you will do good if you commit to it 100%, like anything else.
Yeah.
And you did, right? So I didn't think you would, to be quite honest. No.
Why is that?
Well, you said you need some time to think.
Yeah, just because it's a lot to like wrap your head around, like quitting something that like I like the stability and like having that as kind of my backup, but it was also kind of like my downfall because now I can pursue something that's going to be beneficial long term for me
and something you enjoy and something that's more fulfilling,
more passionate about, right?
I think you were saying that like you didn't like the work you were doing at the hospital just for various reasons, right?
Yeah, they're going to be listening to this.
Are they? Well, it wasn't about anyone in particular.
No. Just the job is like...
Yeah. It's also like when you're working in a hospital, from what I've heard from a lot of clients, is that it's just like, it's like government.
Yeah.
Like you can't...
It's kind of
you do
almost miserable.
Yeah, right? And it's like a jail sentence, I think.
Yeah, kind of.
He does it too, so who knows?
Are you going to hire him soon or what?
Yeah, we'll see if he gets abs deep enough. So you did that, and looking back, I think this is an important lesson for people. What would you say was, like, in that moment, it's very difficult to make those kind of decisions. I know from personal experience, but looking back, what piece of advice can you give people that are struggling to make a big life decision like that?
I think it ultimately kind of boils down to like trusting yourself and like knowing that you can like put in that effort, and like when you don't have something to fall back on, you have nothing else to like lose. Like you have to push and you have to make sure that you succeed.
Yeah. I think it's important when you have no other option. You have to put yourself in positions where you have no other option. And this is challenging as you become more successful, I find. Like as you make more money and the driver isn't that you need money, for example, then you have to find something else that drives you, right?
Exactly.
Because that's where you become comfortable and complacent. You're like, well, I don't need to work because I don't need the money anymore. So you have to be driven by something else. And that's why your story of what drives you has to change, right? But ultimately, I think that when you get to a place where you just trust yourself and you just do things because you can, more than anything, just trust that you will do a good job, that you will show up and you will execute and do all the things that you need to do.
You have no other choice.
That's the best place to operate from, right? So obviously you're doing a lot better. And one of the big reasons was because you weren't doing a good job with your clients. Not because you weren't good, but it was because you weren't able to provide them. And
Yeah.
as a coach, you have to be 100%
Exactly.
full-time. Right? So you weren't able to provide people with the, being punctual enough
Yeah.
and attentive enough and responsive enough and all those sorts of things that people need when you're coaching them, right? And I pride myself in the fact that like I don't take days to reply to people as a coach.
Yeah.
I don't take hours to reply. I'm
Exactly.
always on my
and then
phone.
when I was like working, it's like 8 hours or 10, 12 that you're working. And if it's really busy, you have no downtime. Like sometimes you can't even end up taking like a break on time or those types of things. So I found that like I would go to the bathroom, like,
to try to do your work.
do my work real quickly and go back.
So how long were you doing that job for before you quit full time? Quit to work with us full time.
So I started that job right before the pandemic. So that was,
So let's say 3 years or so.
yeah.
Okay, 3 years. And I think that also, let me ask you this. Do you think if you were still working that job that you would have turned pro?
Probably not. I don't think so.
No. Why do you think?
Just like, I'm able to focus on what I'm more passionate about and put the effort into something that like I truly love doing. Whereas there it's like, okay, I gotta go to work, I gotta wake up, do this. Like I was more focused on like the routine and not really motivating or like pushing myself to
Just going
the
through the
extremes.
motions, I
Yeah,
think,
just going
right?
through the emotions.
But okay, so this is key for people. Like it is very hard to get to that tipping point in life because like you have to be good enough or get to a point where you're good enough and you have enough confidence and enough trust that you can take that leap.
Yeah.
But like, I think people take the leap too soon and then they end up failing.
Fail.
Or I think people don't take the leap at all, right? So you have to, like there's a lot of struggle and resistance involved leading up to that because like, I remember when I was working at a restaurant, I would be working at the restaurant and then I would be training people before and after and going to the gym at like 1 a.m. to do my cardio and all that. Up until I got to the point where it made sense to quit or it made sense to make the transition. But during that phase was challenging because I was trying and I had to figure out how to do everything because I needed to make enough money to fund my life, but also do enough and have enough that I can take that jump for. Because at least maybe I had 6 clients at the time that it made a little bit of sense.
Yeah.
That it had some sort of like, there was some sort of belief there, and the belief was based on the fact that, okay, I have 6 clients now. Imagine if I can put 100% into this.
Yeah.
How many more clients I could have.
And that's what I was kind of thinking too. And like I made that decision was once I hit a point where I'm kind of making the same amount as what I'm doing at the hospital, then why would I keep that job? Then switch over, put 100% into this, and then go from there.
Good. Yeah. So you ended up turning pro. And I think to me, that's obviously a huge achievement, especially in the category you're in, especially at the show you're in, especially, in my opinion, I think bikini is the hardest category. And I know a lot of people will disagree, but I have my reasons for thinking it's the hardest category to turn pro. I'll say this quickly. It's the hardest category to turn pro, in my opinion, because you can't outgrow the category to get better, right? Whereas like bodybuilding, if you have shit genetic structure and shitty genetic shape, you can just keep building muscle to offset that. So you can build bigger lats, you can build bigger shoulders, you can build a bigger chest, bigger quad sweep, and it will make your waist look smaller. But in bikini, you can't keep doing that because at some point, the more muscle you build, you outgrow the category.
Yeah.
And you're not a bikini girl anymore. So to some degree, it is largely based on like training properly because you have to create muscle in the right areas and not throw those proportions off. Like you have to be so meticulous and particular, but at the same time, you also have to have the structure for it.
Yeah.
Like you can't excel and go to the very top with like a poor genetic bone structure, right? You might be able to turn pro or win a show
but
maybe
you might not be able to do well.
Sure, whatever your limitation is. You have the genetic structure of somebody that's in the Olympia, the highest level of the sport. You just didn't capitalize. I'm not saying it was your work ethic. You just didn't capitalize on the opportunity. But like you also didn't really struggle to, like you're placing first and third and all these sorts of things.
Yeah. I felt like I wasn't like really, like even I find even after doing the pro show, I was like, yeah, I could have worked harder. Like,
well, that's what happened last year when you placed third. I was more disappointed in myself, to be quite honest, because I was like, this girl should win the show.
I know.
Like,
I remember, do you remember what you said to me when we came backstage?
This probably wasn't good. What was it?
I was going to pull you from this competition.
I remember I was actually now.
Yeah.
Because you didn't look good. But
Because
I knew
I
that
think he
your
did pull
genetics
me.
would carry you.
Yeah, he did pull me from the one previously because I don't know, I was just mentally not.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Not
But I knew
there.
your genetics always carried you, and that's not a
Yeah.
good thing. Because there are certain types of people. There are people that with really good genetics and poor work ethic, and there are people with really good work ethic and poor genetics. And usually like it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Because someone with shit genetics has to have a good work ethic, and somebody with really good genetics gets by.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you were more on that side. I'm not saying your work ethic was poor, it's just you
Wasn't
didn't
optimal.
realize like you were placing high without
Exactly.
pushing yourself to your next level.
Like I even remember coming off stage, I'm like, wow, I placed the same as I did last year, but I looked shittier.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Right? So I remember being like disappointed in myself more than anything and saying like I never, you know, and I go through this sometimes. Like I never want to feel this way again where I didn't max out somebody, right? And there's like always like a little bit of a you know, like a internal conflict with me because, you know, like pushing people to their best doesn't always coincide with like being nice and healthy for people, right?
Yeah.
Like to really max out, people have to be really uncomfortable. And at the end of the day, being quite honest and transparent with everybody, I own a business. So like, what other business in the world are you telling your customer they're shit?
Yeah.
You know, like you go to a restaurant and imagine the server's like, you're fucking ugly.
Yeah.
You know, like, or you go try
Well,
on
they
a
have
shirt.
restaurants like that.
Yeah, I saw that. The Karen's restaurant, right? Isn't it?
Something like that.
Something new I saw. But imagine you go into a clothing store and you try on a shirt and the person's like, yeah, it looks terrible on you.
Yeah.
Like no business thrives that
can't,
way,
no.
right? So it's only this business which is challenging. So you have to be really good with your words. You really have to have good rapport with people and good communication and all that. But I set my business up in a way now where I can not focus on the fact that I need the money from this business because I have other businesses that do that.
You
so
tell
I can
people
just,
what they need to hear.
100%, so I could be good at coaching only and not because I need money unconsciously maybe, right? So I remember like really working on that for a few years and I got to that point. I remember saying like nobody will compete unless they can win. Unless they look their best. That's what matters, right? And they have a really good shot at winning. And obviously you can't guarantee that.
Yeah.
So what changed during this prep? You know, like what did we do different?
Definitely
how did you,
mindset
360,
shift.
yes.
Like 100%. I wasn't having, like I had no excuses to hold back. Like I couldn't blame, you know, oh, I did shift work or like, I think that was a huge thing where it's like, you kind of, I got into a mindset of like, wow, this is like really hard. Like I can't, you know, this is a lot to balance. But then, you know, being able to transition to coaching and it just kind of gave me that confidence and like, that I was able to push myself beyond what I thought I was capable of.
So do you think you liked working on that job because it was like a cop out? You can always blame it, you know? You can always say like, and I do this, so I have to remind myself and remove these like safety nets, right? Like, or these excuses, these pre-formed excuses. So it's an easy way for you to say, well, I didn't win and it's okay because I worked shift work and I was tired and I was all these sort of things, right? So we hold on to these like anchors that help to alleviate our ego from being destroyed and you know.
And I think that's what kind of flipped a switch in me when I broke my foot. Because it was kind of like the same situation. I could either use that as an excuse or as an out, or I could use that to push
like
harder.
this bad thing that happened to you in life could be the thing that broke you or sorry, allowed you to exit, like finally allowed you to escape and be a victim, or the thing that made you better.
Exactly.
Right? So when did you break your foot?
It was 8 weeks out from, was it Legends Cup, I think? No, maybe 8 weeks out from the pro qualifier, 7 weeks out from Legends Cup. But yeah, I remember, because...
How'd you break your foot?
It's really stupid. But little backstory. I think it was just from doing so much cardio and...
So you're blaming me for breaking your foot?
Blaming you. Doing a lot of cardio. I think I had like a little hairline fracture. So the one night I had posing practice with Angeline and went to bed. In the morning I was like, okay, I'm gonna practice this so it's in my head. I put my posing heels on and I think I stepped on like a dog toy or something, rolled my ankle and I just heard it like snap. And then I was like, ooh, okay. Started to like try to walk around on it. I was like, this is not good. I'm not gonna tell Amer for a little bit. And then it got like pretty sore. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to tell him because I don't know what to do after this. So I actually ended up having like a hair appointment, all of these things booked throughout the day. So I was like, okay, I'll just go to those, see how it feels later on. And then obviously I messaged you and was like, I think I broke my foot because it was getting pretty swollen. And then I ended up going to the hospital. I think it was at like 6 or 7 p.m. and sat there till 1 a.m. And they were like, yep, you broke it pretty good. So then I was like, well, now what? I basically sat in the hospital parking lot crying for like 30 minutes because I'm like, I worked so hard for this. Like, I don't want to give it up. So I was like, Amer better not pull me. Then I was like, you know what? He's not going to because you got surgery and literally like the next day you were back at it.
Not really, but yeah, not really. Okay, so you broke your foot 7-8 weeks out.
Yeah.
I think most people would have used that as an opportunity to say, I'm out.
Yeah.
And honestly, maybe if you didn't break your foot, you wouldn't have looked as good as you did.
Yeah.
Right?
Why do you think that?
I just think that drives you sometimes, right? Like it opens up a new level within you. And you know, when you are able to operate under pain, when you're able to operate under like the worst circumstances, when you start to get better and when you start to feel better, you're like, this is nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's even in sports, like a big part of like, I know from experience with wrestling conditioning is like coaches push you to your absolute threshold, not because you're ever going to need that during competition, but it's like anything less than this is easy, right? So it's about raising your threshold and your tolerance so that when you operate under like the best circumstance or the easiest circumstances, not like you can operate easily.
Yeah.
And you never have an excuse, you know, you're never like, this is too hard or, you know, or this sucks, or you're kind of like, oh, this is, even 2 hours of cardio is easy.
Yeah.
When my foot is good.
Exactly. So I was like, yeah, when I was doing cardio, like, have you ever used the assault bike? Like, do you?
We have one right there, but clearly not.
Well, it's terrible. You can't do it for 2 hours. I didn't.
With the arms, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the worst.
The worst. Like, everything gives out before your actual cardio. So I would switch it up. I would do like assault bike. I would like prop up my foot on that little peg and then do cardio that way. More so hit. And then I would, once my foot got a little bit better to do like the stationary bike, I switched over to that. But for a while I couldn't even do the stationary just because the boot would be in the way and like any movement like laterally was not good.
So for how long were you doing that for? Before you can get to Stairmaster? Because it healed pretty quick.
Yeah, it was, like I want to say, so I did cardio the day after I broke it.
So right away you were back.
Right away I went and did the assault bike. I also did that rope thing for a little bit.
Yeah, I hate that.
Anything that I know, I hate that thing too.
Yeah. So would you say that like obviously now under that, experiencing that diet, you can still you have clients, you work with people. What would you tell them if they go through an injury or something where they feel they can't work out? Like, can people still see progress?
There's definitely lots of things that you can do. Like, you can still focus on your nutrition. Obviously, like that would be like the number one thing that you can manipulate the best. With my workouts and stuff like that, there was certain things that I could still do. Obviously, I could still do upper body, back, like shoulders.
You do a lot of leg stuff too, right?
Yeah, and I did. I would because I could still put pressure on my heel, so I could still like make adjustments to like kickbacks or like abductors, deadlifts. I was still able to do. I would do like single leg. Yeah. Kind of weird. I don't know. I did some weird things.
Do you think it affected your physique? A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. Just because I do find that I have maybe like.
It's on your right side, right?
Yeah.
So on the right side, your glute doesn't show as much.
No, exactly.
Like where it ties into your hamstring.
Yeah.
It doesn't show as much.
And I was having some like engagement, like when show day, when we were doing like going over the posing and stuff like that, I was having some like trouble engaging it. I don't know if that was maybe like previously.
Yeah.
But I noticed it more after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how intense was your prep aside from that, like cardio wise and stuff? We were doing a lot of cardio. You're eating very little. You can be honest.
It was pretty intense. 2 hours of cardio and.
For a while.
I mean, yeah. For a while, yeah.
And how low was your food?
Well, we did like just strictly like protein the peak week.
How about before that? You weren't eating much carbs or fat.
No, my body just doesn't really look good with a lot of carbs.
Yeah.
I'm more of a I think that like when I crave things, it's more so like higher fat stuff.
Mm-hmm. Your body's also very unique in the sense that you could look full without a lot of food. And like even peaking you is somewhat challenging.
Yeah.
From what I've found, like historically, what do we do with you?
Starve me.
You don't eat show
We
day.
fast basically all.
You don't drink water.
Yeah. But this time was a little bit different.
Because you were leaner.
So I was lean enough.
Here's my advice to everyone all the time. If you get lean enough and if you build enough muscle, it solves all your problems. Like you will solve every problem you have when it comes to peaking and filling out and all these things if you are in shape. You don't have to manipulate much. Because you were never in the shape you needed to be in, we always had to like drop water and try to make you look tighter than you were.
Yeah.
Even posing, we were always like manipulating your posing to make you look tighter and leaner than you were, right? Like bend your knees, you know, all these sorts of little changes we made.
Mm-hmm.
But finally, like, and for, the difference in peaking from one week to another was very different as well,
very
right?
Different.
So,
because like the
because you cheat on your
qualifier.
diet a week before your show.
Yeah.
I remember. Remember how pissed I was?
So pissed.
I'm like, I'm gonna fucking kill her.
Yeah.
She's dead.
Well, I thought I had like, yeah, that was just an excuse, but because I was pretty sick. Wanted ice
not
cream.
Not an excuse. She ate ice cream a week before a show. A week? Yeah, about a week.
About a week. Maybe.
And your body looked like shit.
Yeah, no, you're like.
And I asked you like 10 times, are you sure you only ate ice cream?
Yeah.
Are you sure you only ate ice cream?
Maybe some rice cakes and peanut butter.
Yeah, see. So you didn't.
But also, your reply was like, you look like you gained 10 pounds.
The problem with your body when it's that sensitive is that like any sort of change like that can affect it, right?
Yeah.
Like you can change your look.
For
like
sure.
it looks like you went back 6 weeks in a day, right? And that a lot of that's water, but the point is like now you're doing things to catch up and you know like obviously fix that issue, right? So this is like when you broke your foot and you were crying in the car. I was crying in the car, pissed off.
Probably.
I was like, she fucked up all the work I did.
I know.
So you cheated. We fixed the problem. You ended up winning. You still weren't at your best.
No.
Because we had to starve you on show day and not be able to give you water, dehydrate
That was for
you.
Legends Cup, right?
Yeah, the first show. And then a week later, we got you even leaner. So I think by like Wednesday, you were a little bit too lean. Wednesday night, I remember.
Yeah.
Thursday morning, we started to eat a little bit more and we kept the water intake how high on show day?
I think we did what, 2.5?
Yeah, which is
liters.
Very different than doing what you
Yeah, usually I would
historically have
only
done.
just sip water.
Yeah, when you need it, right? So, and obviously that solved the problem of like getting you fuller, but keeping you tighter. Like we were able to manage all the different things that we wanted simply because you got lean enough and because you had enough muscle, obviously, as well, right? So
the ice cream wasn't too terrible.
Well, yeah, it was. Still, could have looked even better.
Yeah.
Right? So how does it feel after like winning, you know?
Feels
And
good.
I told you, I think for a few days, I was like, it's crazy you won. Like, you
Like I
turned-
still, well, obviously this is hanging up at the gym, so I don't know. I don't really feel any different unless I like look back on my Instagram. I'm like, oh yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Because it is a really big achievement and it is very hard, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I think, you know, some people turn pro and it's, you know, like that's kind of it for them, you know, depending on where you win it. I think when you win your pro card in Canada, I think for the most part, you probably will end up being a good pro. I think when you win your, and I'm not saying like the States, you're not. I just think there's certain shows where you can win a pro card where they're giving out a lot more pro cards.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you can get lucky. It could be your day, it could be an easy class, whatever. But typically in Canada, there's not
It's a lot
many
harder.
easy classes. And they're only giving one pro card per category. So like you, for the most part, probably had to have been good. So, you know, I do think that you have potential to go a lot further. I told you that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, just based on your genetics and based on where you're at and based on like the muscle you have now. And so, you know, what's the plan now? What is your goal? Before I even ask you that, like, did you ever think you could turn pro? Be honest. Like, did you ever?
Previously, no, but going into these shows, like my mindset was so much different. Like I don't know if it kind of sounds cocky, but like going into it, I was like, this is my pro card.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wasn't nervous. I was pretty calm. Like people are like, oh, I need to be more confident, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I am. I already won.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I
kind of
remember
like,
you were like that, yeah. But what do you think gave you that confidence? Do you think it was just being more committed to the process?
I think so, yeah.
Because
Obviously, like your sport too.
mm-hmm. Well, I think when you have someone that believes in you, and you know, I tell our employees that when it comes to clients, like when you believe in somebody, it makes people want to. First of all, it makes people believe in themselves because not everyone does, and also it's hard to believe in yourself if you're unsure.
Yeah.
Like it is hard to believe that you're good if you don't have any sort of reference point, right? So like if you don't know if you're good,
you don't really know if you're capable of achieving those things.
Yeah, right.
Whereas like you kind of saw that like a long time ago.
Yeah. And I think we really pushed it, and I think that gave you some confidence. And then I also think just being a lot better a lot sooner, right? Like you were leaner earlier, which you start to see how your physique looks rather than, because I think confidence is developed in the process of doing things as well.
Yeah.
So like if you're kind of like dieting and you're not in shape until the very end, and then, okay, yeah, you're in shape on like a week from your show, that's one thing. But like you didn't really have time to develop the confidence by looking at yourself. So like, even then you might not feel super confident when you compete because you're like, you've been in shape for a few days. Exactly. Versus like being in shape for 6 weeks, you start to see how you really look. You start to at least get glimpses of it because like it is very up and down, I think, for, you know, for a lot of people. Yeah. Do you feel that way? Like 1 minute you think you look good, 1 minute you think you look shitty?
Yeah, every morning I'm like, awesome, I look tight. And then by the end of the night, I'm like, why?
Yeah, like, but you have to know yourself and when not to look at yourself.
Exactly. Like you can't, like it's probably not a good thing, but I would like weigh myself every morning and like make sure that like even if I was up a pound, I was like, shit, like I need to work harder again to keep going and keep pushing. But then like your physique changes so much, like you can't really use that as an indicator.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's good to have these you know, reference point of references that you could say, okay, like that's what an Apple Watch is good for. Is it really telling you how many calories you burn? No, but at least it gives you some sort of accountability, right? Like it's an accountability tool. Okay, I could look at my watch. I know I didn't work as hard today.
Yeah.
Does the number itself actually matter? Obviously not. You know, people are like, oh, I burned 1,500 calories. I ate 1,200. I should have lost weight today. And it's like, well, that number 1,500 is arbitrary. It means nothing. You know, like what is it based on? It's not based on actual caloric expenditure. It's based on like your heart rate and nothing else. And there's so many other variables that contribute to how many calories you expend on a daily basis.
And I think going back on like the confidence thing with like going into the pro qualifier, I think doing Legends Cup before the pro qualifier like gave me even more confidence. Just because I never won an overall, so every time that I would do a show, like regional show, and then going into a pro qualifier, I kind of just would think like, well, that girl already beat me in that previous competition, so like how could I be better at a national level?
I agree and I disagree. I could see how people think that way because I was even telling you the girl that you beat that looked pretty good in that one first show. Yeah. She didn't even end up doing the show the week later, which I think she should have. Because I still think at the very least she probably would have won her height class. But people get discouraged. And also, you know, this sport is so subjective that like sometimes it's relative to who you are compared with. Like you could look really good in one lineup and then another lineup you don't look as good just because maybe the majority of people have a different look and you kind of are the best amongst the majority. Like at the end of the day, it's humans judging. Yeah. So there's going to be a degree of human error, a degree of human inconsistency, a degree of human bias, like all these things. And there's no right or wrong. It's not even like a judge made a mistake. It's just they see it that way, right? And it's a different judge sometimes too.
Exactly.
Right? So I think that obviously, you know, doing a show before is beneficial if you're doing a national show or a pro qualifier. But at the same time, what if you didn't win?
I feel like we would have probably still done it.
I know, but that would have affected your confidence?
Probably. Like I probably wouldn't have felt so like sure and like confident going into the pro qualifier.
I think so too.
Because then you get inside your head.
So
a little bit.
Obviously you work with, like what type of clients do you work with?
Mainly lifestyle clients.
Lifestyle women mostly?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think belief is important in developing confidence, whether it's stepping on a stage or just people, you know, trying to lose weight. People struggle with that all the time. So
I think that's a huge thing that like most women kind of lack, is having that self-belief and like knowing that they're capable of achieving like their goals. So like having a coach that like obviously sees the picture in the long run.
And keeps you accountable.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Because like people always want to deviate and revert to what they think is best, you know, or something has worked for them 20 years ago. You know, I find this huge with people. They're like, oh, I lost weight doing it this way. Therefore, they keep trying to do it that way. But like your body changes. So it doesn't work for you anymore. But they keep trying it because, you know, based on their history, they know that's worked well for them, right? So, you know, how do you get the results you get with your clients? How are you able to get like what's your coaching style with them, or how do you communicate with people that gets more out of them? You know, what do you think it is when you're working with women?
I would say, I think like just making sure, like it's the accountability and kind of making sure that you're creating a schedule that they can adhere to the most. Because you can give, like, sure, you can give somebody like the most like intense program, but are they going to stick to it? Like I work with a lot of women that are like really busy on the go, like constantly having to go do the next task. So kind of working with their schedule, and even if that entails like minimal cardio, but
it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
It's also better than like giving somebody an hour of cardio. They can't do an hour, they can only do 20, but they become discouraged and feel like a failure because they can only do 20.
And sometimes that happens too, is like they'll check in with me and they'll be like, oh, like I failed this week, like I fell off track with this and this. And then like it sets them up for failure, really. So you just kind of have to figure out what works best for them, because ultimately, like if you want to stick with it long term, like you want it to be something that you can maintain.
Yeah, and confidence is very intangible, right? So it's like, it's things that you don't see. People don't understand why they don't have confidence or they haven't developed it, but they develop it by like doing things and checking the boxes and then feeling good about doing that.
It's all about those check marks. I have a few clients that are like obsessed with checking everything off on the checklist. And if they don't, then they're like, shit.
Yeah, I'm not good at working with people like that.
I have a few of those people. They're going to be listening to this and they're going to message me after.
Well, I'll tell you one guy, he wanted me to schedule in what time he wakes up every day. Just set your alarm, buddy. Just set your fucking alarm, man. I have to schedule your wake up time?
I do have some
I cannot work with that. That's not my type of clientele. But that's why I'm also not good for everyone. Yeah. And I understand my limitations. I understand what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. And honestly, you know, like when I'm working, I understand who my market is. Like I'm not going to be good with people that are even just maybe starting out doing their first show. So it's not even just lifestyle. I might not be good with people that are even doing their first show just because I cannot offer them what they need at that particular time in their journey, right? And that same person may end up working with another coach and then say, okay, my coach isn't good anymore. I want to work with you. And say, well, that person is a good coach. They just aren't good for you anymore because
you need the next level.
Yeah, you've exhausted what you needed out of them.
So you were actually my first coach.
Yeah.
But I remember, because obviously like it was through my friend Randy. She was like, okay, anything that Amer says, don't take it to heart. And I was like, what are you talking about? I found out really quick.
Well, your friend took it to heart. Another one of your friends that I coached.
Yeah.
And she left, if you're watching this. She won and then she left. So at least she won. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have to cut it out.
No.
Okay, so why did your friend say that to you?
Because
now I'm
obviously
insulted.
you're like you're very blunt and like to the point, like you don't sugarcoat anything. But I think that that's the type of client that you work best with.
Yeah. And they don't have to be a competitor. They could even be lifestyle if they need that, right?
Yeah.
Or if that's their communication style or that's how, and there's someone for everyone. And I think sometimes like, that's what I'm saying. People typically maybe like that are doing their first show might be better suited with a different personality type because they need a different type of approach. Yeah, a different type of approach, a different type of like, and they might even look better with someone else, even though I can take that person a lot further. So I might be able to take that person further, but initially they wouldn't look better with me. They look better with somebody that like can provide them with those, you know, like I can help people develop confidence, but I don't necessarily think I can help people that are just struggling to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's a different type
of motivation.
Helping, exactly. And I just think over time I've recognized that and figured that out, right? And And then obviously, like maybe even for you, you just weren't ready to turn pro before. But as you developed and as you accumulated different skills and different, you know, like just.
Well, I always thought of it as like you need to act and think like a pro before you actually turn pro.
Yeah, like people always want this pro card and think they're going to end up being a pro once they turn pro. Like you actually have to look like a pro. That's why they give you the pro card.
Exactly.
So if you actually create like an inverse way of looking at this and say, I'm going to look like a pro so that when I go step on the stage, they will give me a pro card, you will end up looking a lot better.
Yeah.
Whereas people think like, am I better than everyone here?
Exactly.
Who cares about being better than everyone here? Can you honestly look in the mirror? This should be your benchmark when you're competing. Can you look in the mirror and say, I look like I can step on a pro stage?
Yeah.
If you can't, then that tells you that you're not good enough.
Exactly.
Plain and simple.
And that gave me a little like more confidence because like you would actually say you're starting to look like a pro now. So then like in my head I'm like, okay, like I gotta train like a pro, eat like a pro, like continue to have that mindset going forward.
Like what's the difference between you and a pro? It's the way they train, it's the way they're committed, it's the way they eat, it's like all those little things. So if you just do those things first, you'll end up getting there.
Yeah.
Instead of saying like, I want to turn pro, like why do you even want to turn pro?
Yeah.
The goal of this is not to turn pro. The goal of this is to turn pro. No kid says, I want to be play in the NFL. They want to win the Super Bowl, right? Like that's the point of playing football. That's the point of playing in the NFL is to eventually and hopefully win the Super Bowl. That should be your aspiration. So the goal shouldn't be to turn pro. It should be in your mind, like I want to reach the absolute pinnacle of this, and turning pro is just a stepping stone to get there.
Yeah.
But when you set your bar lower and say, I just want to turn pro, I don't think you'll ever push yourself to that limit of actually looking like a pro because like your bar is already low. Like that is your limitation.
Yeah. Like all my previous competitions, I was like, oh, it'd be cool if I could place like first in my class or like I had low expectations going in. This time around, I was like I showed you, I sent you a picture. I printed the pro card and stuck it on my fridge. Win pro card October 7th. And then like I would look at that every single day and like obviously like when I broke my foot there'd be days where I'm like
throw it out.
Shit.
Take the shit off the fridge.
Throw it. But yeah, no, like I just felt like I had a lot more support and like I would look back on messages that people would send me like I'm gonna be there to watch you win your pro card, like stuff like that like when I would get into my head I would just look back and
well, your expectations do create your reality, you know, and it's that might not mean anything to some people listening or watching, but I think that when you understand that like where you place your expectations are the limit that you can go to in life. So like if your expectations are low, that is what your reality is going to end up being at best, right? Like you're never going to exceed your expectations. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So if you have low expectations, you're not just going to randomly and miraculously show up to a show and like beat everybody.
Yeah,
it's never going to happen. So, and I'm not saying just by having high expectations, that's going to make you good alone. But at least having high expectations is going to dictate the process. It's going to dictate how hard you work. It's going to dictate what you do on the days that are challenging. It's going to dictate what you do when you don't feel like doing it. It's going to dictate what you do when you get in your head. Like what you do on those days is going to be influenced by how you feel based on your expectations. So if my expectations are high, when I'm having a shitty day, I'm going to look at those messages and say, no, I'm not going to feel shitty. I'm going to go and work harder.
Yeah.
You know, versus the person that's like, you know what, I'm going to shut this workout down early because I don't feel good today.
Yeah. And when I would feel like that, I would put my running shoes on and just head to the gym. And like, you just kind of have to get out of that, like, it doesn't become like motivation at that point. It's more so like you have to stick to like what your ultimate goal is and what needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's kind of like what I say about depression. Like if you just don't think about it, does it exist? Like you ultimately create your reality. If you're depressed, but you never think about the fact that you're depressed,
then are you depressed?
You're not, right? Like you can also like put yourself in whatever headspace you want to put yourself in. And the more you focus on things, the more it becomes real and bigger in your mind, right? And obviously, you know, I'm not saying depression's not real, but is everybody that feels depressed actually depressed?
Yeah.
You know, not every single person that says they're depressed is actually depressed. Like you could just be unhappy. You could just be sad. You could be, and it doesn't make you depressed. But if you think you are, you might end up staying in that state for a lot longer than you need to be
you kind of have to like silence that voice in your head that like keeps you in that mindset.
Yeah, the voice that you talk to yourself with is more important than any other voice, right?
Sure.
And no coach can do that for you. I think coaches can guide you in different directions and reframe and refocus and help you to recalibrate your thinking. That's what a good coach should be doing. But at the end of the day, you are with yourself 24 hours a day, and you have to be able to do that, right? And that's how I can kind of tell, for the most part, I think when somebody's going to win. I have a very good idea. It's based on them. It's not based on me. It's based on like how they think. It's how they approach things, how they approach their prep. It's how they view themselves. And I think that's really important. Like, if you don't view yourself as a winner, you're never going to win. If you don't expect that you should win, it's not about the expectation. It's about like, what did you do for those like 6 months leading up to that? Because they are conducive and influenced by how you view yourself.
Yeah, and I find it like if you complain about prep, you're complaining about all of these things, and you're focusing on like, oh, I can't wait to get my cheat meal. Like all those things are like that wasn't even a thing that went through my mind.
Yeah, that's why people think I get mad when they talk about cheat meals. It's not that I'm against cheat meals. It's like, you talk to me more about cheat meals than you do winning.
Yeah.
I don't mind clients messaging me. It's not like I'm annoyed by it. No, I'm annoyed by you talking about a cheat meal.
Yeah.
Because a cheat meal to me is just as much of a tool as doing cardio. They're just different tools in the prep. Like there's a time for it and there's a place for it. But like, why aren't you talking to me about like work ethic? Why aren't you talking to me about working harder? Why aren't you talking to me about doing more cardio? Like if you really care about a cheat meal because of the benefit it has, I should be hearing you equally talk to me about like, should I be doing more cardio?
Yeah.
Should I be, doing more sets? Should I be doing more? But you don't, because you care more about a cheat meal. Yeah. Because it's not about winning, right? And I want to talk to winners. I want to talk to people about winning, and the things you're saying are ultimately going to dictate that. And I think that a piece of advice I would give people when I'm coaching people, I know that somebody can be a winner. I've summed it up to the more opinions somebody has, more often the worse they are as a client. Like the more somebody has opinions about what they think they should be doing and these biases, the harder it is to get that person good. Like they're often not the best clients.
Yeah.
The athletes that are the absolute best, whether it's you, whether it's Dove, you guys watch that interview also, you guys don't have biases. Like you're not sitting there saying, I should be eating like this.
I've ever said anything that's like...
You've never said to me, I think I should be eating more calories. I think I need a cheat meal. I think I need to do more or less cardio,
Well, from the very beginning, I even remember Randy being like, don't ever ask for a cheat meal.
Yeah, because it's a loser mindset.
Okay.
What do you want a cheat meal for? Like the sport is...
Whatever he tells me, that's...
And you never were trying to like influence my decision, right? And people, that have no history or no understanding of the sport, they've never even been in real shape, and they'll be like, I think I need this. You don't know.
Just mentally need.
You don't know what you need. Like I can tell you, don't know. You've never been there, so you've never pushed yourself that far. Therefore, you don't even know what you should be feeling, right? If you've never, this is the first time you've been as good as you've been. So wasn't it different than previous preps?
Like the approach, not
the approach, but how you feel through the process. Like to get that lean, didn't you have to feel a little bit different than you did when you weren't as lean?
Yeah, I felt shittier.
Yeah, you felt worse, right? So you didn't even know, that's probably the worst you felt, let's say.
For sure.
Right?
Like I feel like my brain wasn't functioning like a few weeks out, obviously. Like you're just on like this zombie like autopilot mode, and it's really tough, honestly. Like I almost feel like you need to be at that point though.
Forgot what that's like.
It's not a good feeling.
I feel like you should try it again.
You should. Step on stage.
But if I were to give you the autonomy and I was to say, you let me know when you think you should do more or less.
Oh, I definitely, I wouldn't know what to
when
really...
is enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So
I wouldn't know how far I needed to push to get to that point.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't even know. So people don't know. And unless you've done this for a long time, unless you've been a coach, unless you've coached thousands of people, or forget even that, just show me that you've been there before. But you haven't. So the fact that you haven't tells me that you don't know, right? Yeah. And that's why you should just trust blindly a coach and commit to, whoever that coach is, like just commit fully. And then when you're done, you make that decision. Yeah. And that's like the biggest, I've heard clients say, oh, I think I should pose like this. You don't. First of all, you're looking at the worst angle. You're looking from the top down.
You're not even seeing the angle that the judge is seeing.
Yeah, you're looking from here down. and it looks completely different from what the judge's perspective is. So that's a big part of being a really good athlete, is being very coachable, right? And that's one of your biggest strengths. So I don't want to just throw this like genetic card around, because like genetics structurally you do have that, but that's not the reason why you turn pro, right? Like number one, you're very coachable, and that's what an athlete is. There's a difference between a competitor and an athlete. A lot of people are competitors. Competitor, all you have to do is go show up, pay $200, get a tan, step on stage. That doesn't make you an athlete, right? What makes you an athlete is what you do to get to that point, who you become to get to that point, like all of the adversities that you push through to get to that point. And that's what makes somebody an athlete. So there is a very big difference between being a competitor and an athlete.
Definitely. I agree.
So you were a competitor before?
Definitely a competitor.
First time being an athlete?
Feels good.
Yeah. So
finally an athlete.
What's your plan for next year?
I think we're going to do a few pro shows.
Yeah, we'll do a few pro shows, right? And I think that you'll place very high.
I expect that.
There's some areas of your physique that could be better, right?
So work on building those up a bit.
No ice cream.
No ice cream.
No cheat meals. Unplanned, right?
Back to the grind.
And so I guess, what piece of advice would you give to people doing their, people that feel they're stuck? That's more important, because I feel like you were in a place that you were sort of stuck with getting your body to the next level. You always looked a little bit better, but it wasn't substantially better. This year you came back, it was like night and day. You look like a completely different person. How do you do that? How do you and I think here, I'll say this. The worst part about like being in the same place is that becomes your norm. So like it just becomes easier it's even worse because it becomes easier to stay mediocre.
Yeah. I think like, obviously I had like a ton of things that kind of pushed me to become better and to like level up, which kind of gave me the confidence in other aspects of my life to like level up and keep pushing. So I don't know, mindset is everything, honestly. Like just being able to.
Well, same coach.
Yeah.
Same body, coach. Same everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Just different environment. Like more.
Different psychological environment. Right. How you see things. And that's sometimes it. Like maybe you put that thing on your fridge now. That's the accountability. It's a reminder. It's a daily reminder. Yeah. On the shitty days, on the bad days, you're not like, I could just go and do what I feel like doing. Yeah. Maybe you put that thing on the fridge so you don't eat ice cream.
I did.
Yeah. Every time you feel like going there, it's a reminder. Whatever works for you. And that's why no two people are the same, right?
Exactly.
So creating a different psychological environment and
like being surrounded by people, obviously, that are like all the coaches now, like with Lady the F Up, like you, just being around everybody else kind of like puts you in that environment to keep wanting to be better, surrounding yourself with better people.
Yeah, I think one thing I told you a few times is just don't talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Like nobody, your family, your friends, nobody. Just don't talk to anybody.
It worked.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with family, friends, any of that, but sometimes you have to be alone with yourself to be able to see and understand what you really want.
Exactly.
That's key. Because you're influenced all the time with different voices and different like opinions and different, and sometimes like it's harmless, but it can harm you.
For sure.
Like somebody could say something like, and I know for a lot of women, it's like their families are like, oh, you're too skinny, or you're getting too small. And that like little thing could trigger the way you see yourself.
Exactly. And when I broke my foot, there was definitely a lot of people that were like, oh, you need to rest. You need to.
Yeah, it's okay. Like, don't worry.
Come back after. I'm like, I'm not talking to you.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to learn to, fuck you, buddy. Go fuck yourself.
Like, could you imagine if I gave in and just didn't. Yeah.
But it's easy to be influenced, especially when you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Especially when you're in a place of weakness is the worst time, because that's when things intrude your life, whether it's thoughts, whether it's people, whether it's anything. So I remember telling you, just please don't fucking talk to anybody anymore, anyone. Like do your workouts, do what I tell you to do. Don't talk to anyone, because like you're just stay focused on what you want.
Exactly.
And I think that in my experience working with people that become really good, they're the most alone with themselves through the process. And that's uncomfortable and that's difficult, but you have to be in order to become great at something. You cannot be like a social person, like butterfly and here and supporting this person, doing that thing. You got to be a bit selfish. Like you have to be, it's part of it. You cannot be, like if you're loved by everyone, you're loved by no one.
And I can definitely say like this prep, like I definitely did feel the most alone that I ever have before, because I was just so focused on my goals, and like that's the only thing that I wanted to do was like train, do my work, train again, do my cardio again later on in the day. But like that was what I was fixated on. That's what I wanted.
And it's enjoyable.
It was like I didn't feel like alone as a bad thing. I felt alone because that's what I wanted.
And I think a lot of people are scared to be alone.
Yeah.
They're scared to do that because they're scared to be alone. They're scared of judgment. They're scared of all these and fears, right? And you have to eliminate that in order for you to become good. And a lot of those things in life are actually safety blankets. It's like you broke your foot, you can always go and talk to your friend and they'll make you feel better about yourself, you know? And so like we can use food as comfort. We can use friends as comfort. We can use like all these things are comfort in life to make us feel better when we don't do good. But in reality, what you should be doing is looking in the mirror and saying like, I can do this, or I can be better.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to revert or resort to weak behavior or to things that make me feel good. I remember telling you, like, you have to in life sit in the things that don't make you feel good. It's very easy to pull yourself, like, you could feel like shit about something. Like if you lost your show, I can just, you know, as a coach, I can go home, like do drugs, make myself feel good for the night. And like, it's fine. I pulled myself out of a low. But what I actually have to do is sit in a low in order for me to really reflect on it and say, I didn't do good enough. I need to figure out how to get better.
Yeah.
But if you pull yourself out of a low and like put yourself in a high every time that you feel shitty, you're never facing the thing that's going to help you get better. So whenever I feel shitty, I don't try to pull myself out of it. I always say like, good, let me stay there for a little bit. Like, let me actually be there, because being there is what is going to teach me how to become better. Whereas like, especially today, fucking drug addicts, everyone's addicted to pleasure and dopamine, like all this shit, like smoking, weed and this and that, like just...
They're all just quick fixes.
Yeah, just face reality. Stay there for a little bit, you know? I know we all want to do that, but like just stay where it's most difficult and you're going to get all the answers you need and you're going to figure yourself out. But if you never allow yourself to stay in a position of weakness or in a position where you feel low, you're never going to be forced to figure it out. You're never going to be forced to get better, because the only thing, when I feel like that, I remind myself the only thing that should make me feel better is growing from this or improving from this, or actually, you know, like if it was like my client lost, I'm like, the only way I'm going to get better, feel better, is by winning next time, because I learned that I don't want to lose. But if I don't go through those steps and that process, then I'm like, I bypass the growth. The thing that is going to actually get me better. And
you're just repeating that cycle over and over again.
You just stay shitty your whole life, right? And even for me as a coach, I have to go through that in order for me to continuously get better. That's why my work continuously gets better, because I don't allow myself to, and naturally I want to, revert to things that make me feel good. Like I should be punished, not rewarded when I do wrong. Like I shouldn't be like, oh, I lost, let me go party right now.
Exactly.
You know, like even my client gave me, you know, a nice gold chain, and she gave it to me at this last show, and you know, my client didn't do as good as I wanted, and I remember thinking like, I wish.
Shitty about it? Did you feel shitty about it?
I wish I didn't get it on that day. I wish I got it on a day where like I did good.
Yeah.
Because like now I didn't have to think about the low as much. I'm like, I feel happy because I have like a nice gift, like a nice beautiful gold chain. So like, it's all unconscious too. Like maybe it pulled me up a few notches, but I don't need to be pulled up a few notches at that point, right? So that's a big part of growth. And like, if every time like you broke your foot and you're consoled by people, you're never going to be forced to like really face it and say, you know what, I can do this, or I can get better.
I would kind of think like, I broke my foot, like I almost wanted to like, I craved like more pain. Like what more can I do to feel shittier? Like how much cardio can I do to like keep continuing to feel that way?
Yeah, like that's part of being a strong person. Like you can't break me.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like I felt like I had something to prove. So I like really worked my ass off for that.
And these are all like psychological like war games you play with yourself. And people need to figure themselves out in order to like figure out what makes them work harder, get better, push harder, and not like give in to temptations and weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
Good. So how can people find more of you, or
you can find me on Instagram, coach.Lindsay Martens. I feel like it's usually the only outlet that I use, so.
All this time I thought you were Canadian, by the way. I just learned that you're Mexican.
Oh. definitely. I mean, I was born in Canada,
But you're full Mexican.
yeah, both my parents are from Mexico.
Okay.
You also thought I was like, what, 21?
Yeah, I asked you, how old are you? Tell them.
30.
I thought you were
I'm
20.
30. I'm
I thought
30.
you were like 22 years old.
No.
For the last like 8 years.
I'm old.
Every year I would ask you, I'm like, holy shit, I forgot. Do you remember how many times I said that to you?
No, I think you were talking to one of the judges, I think, or some other coach at one of the shows. And they're like, oh yeah, she's 21. It's like, no.
Just making up stuff.
We'll just go with it.
Perfect. So follow her on Instagram.
Instagram, coach.Lindsay Martens.
That's the only place
That's
you
the
can
only
follow
place
you.
you can.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it was very nice to have you. I hope we have you on again after winning a pro show.
Yeah. Next year.
You're not getting rewarded until you win a pro show, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. Make sure you guys share this episode, like it, subscribe, and thank you very much.
Thanks.